So I went back out to Richmond Park to test the ANAFI. I wanted to try out some flight modes because I purchased the follow me mode and also the flight plan. So here at first I wanted to test out P-log in 24 frames per second at 4K to see how it would respond in color correction. And here you can see a side-by-side where I've just color corrected the P-log video footage, and the other side I haven't touched it at all. So also in this video I've recorded in different frame rates because I tend to work in 1080p genuinely because of processing and storage and so forth. But as well as that, there's a lot more flexibility in the 1080p where you have more frame rates. So I really wanted to try out the different frame rates to see how the frame rates will respond within Final Cut Pro if you slow down the higher frame rate, so to speak. So I recorded in 1080p at 24 frames per second because I wanted to have a look at some of the motion blur within there and see if there's any stuttering. And also I've recorded in 1080p 48 frames per second, 1080p at 50 frames, and 1080p at 60 frames per second. And within the Final Cut project, I slowed down a section of it down to 50% to see how it would respond within the project. Maybe I might use optical flow because it tends to be the best results when slowing down footage within Final Cut Pro, and see how it behaves. Now I did a flight plan. I didn't want to go too crazy on a flight plan because it's, you know, it's first time me testing it out, so I didn't take it up too high. I only took it up to about 6 meters and in a radius of not more than 100 meters. Way less than 100, probably 50 meters in a radius. At one point, actually, as soon as you touch the joysticks, you regain control of the flight plan. So if you think it's going off into a direction which might be hazardous or something like that, you can regain control of the flight plan. That's what I like about ANAFI, is that you have a lot of control factor and it gives the control back to the user. This is why I gave up my Spark, and I mean I had my Spark for a very long time. I really enjoyed the Spark as a drone, especially flying it abroad, but flying it in London was a lot more difficult. You had to find specific places where you can fly it. There, you know, otherwise the app will say this is a class whichever D zone and will not allow you to take off. So these are the elements which contributed to me getting rid of the Spark. And also, since a few updates, it had like 3 flyaways, which was a bit nerve-wracking at the same time. You know, you take off with GPS and everything, and as soon as you get up in the air, it goes in anti-mode, no GPS, gimbal overload. All these things contributed to me just not reinvesting in a DJI drone. I like the drones, but I just don't like the software. I think the software is too draconian for me. And ANAFI so far has been a pleasure to fly. I'm not really fussed about getting supreme distance like 4,000 meters and stuff like that. Line of eyesight is good for me, good enough for me, because Tennessee I would have a point of interest. So you enjoy, the footage. I hope it's helpful and useful for you. As you can see, the follow me works perfectly good, works very well. I think the camera man mode is quite good as well, because you lock on, you target a point of interest, and you know, you lock onto it. So if you lock onto yourself and you walk around, the camera will move and follow you and track you. It's a tracking, you could say. But if you want the actual drone to follow you, you have to fly the drone, but it still will be tracking you as a subject. So then it gives you a kind of flexible movement around the subject, as opposed to the follow me, which behaves in a totally different way from the cameraman setting. So there's a lot of settings which you can combine to get different effects as well. So far, like I said, it's an amazing drone. I like the quality, I like the speed. I done a hand launch as well. It worked very well, a bit nerve-wracking, and I landed in my hand as well. So I'm very pleased with them, super pleased. It's a joy to kind of travel with, because it seems quite big, but it actually is not, because of the form factor. It fits into a very slim, you know, backpack. If you've got a camera backpack or a water pack, it fits into that quite well with the remote control, and the factor of, you know, just lifting up the remote control in order to connect with the drone is so simple and straightforward as well. There's some people complaining about the actual card slot. Now, I've had a drone before which has the spring-loaded system, where I've crashed the drone, so it was a cheap drone, and the card flew out, and I never recovered the card. So, you know, that's a possibility. As well as that, sometimes when you eject it, it just flies out of the drone across the road, across the floor or something like that. But I think with the battery being on top, which is very good, because I would suspect it's less it's less easier to drop off, because it's sitting on top, as well as the card's secure inside. Now you don't need to take the card out. You can connect your power cable directly to the drone, turn the drone on, and you can transfer the files. It comes up like a hard drive. If you need to view the files, then you can actually view the files on the drone through the app. You can either connect via the Wi-Fi if you want to view them, or you can just leave the cable connected directly in, and you can look what's on the card and play them back in that kind of way. But people have had trouble downloading some of the footage directly to their phones, and I think you have to go about it by connecting directly to the Wi-Fi on the drone, and then you'll be able to download them to your phone directly from the drone. So if you go to the ANAFI Wi-Fi selection on your phone, and then when it's made a connection, then you'll be able to download footage directly to your phone, and you have to allow your gallery to have access to your footage and all that kind of stuff. So it is doable in that way. So this is just a quick overview of the Parrot ANAFI. I think it's a brilliant drone. A lot of people say, well, it doesn't have obstacle avoidance, and I prefer it not to have obstacle avoidance, because sometimes obstacle avoidance makes the drone do some very odd things and you lose control. And I think when you're piloting any drone, I think you need to have full control at all times, and it must be able to do what you want it to do. Also, it's a bit of a dumbing down when you have obstacle avoidance. It doesn't make you a better pilot. I mean, when I started with flying drones, I had, big, old drones and stuff like that. They never had no obstacle avoidance. It taught you how to fly a lot better and understand the sticks and distance and range and stuff like that. And you become a bit more cautious as well which is the mentality you should have when you're flying, as opposed to saying, oh well, obstacle avoidance, will deal with it, passing off the responsibility. So you know, I could have went for the Air. I could have probably went for a Maverick. Even when I got my Spark, I could have went for a Maverick Pro, and I didn't go for the Maverick Pro because I really wanted to get more experience with a drone of sort of like the Spark, which was a brilliant drone for the price and size and everything, and portability of it. And I would hate to lose or crash a £1,000 drone at the same time. So that, you know, those are my reasons why I went for the Spark, and I never upgraded to the Air because I didn't think the Air was I didn't think it was a ginormous leap. I didn't need the 1080. I didn't need the 1080 at 120 frames per second. To be quite honest, I like the quality of the Spark for what it did. So, you know, but that's why I kind of held out on the Air and moved straight to the ANAFI to try and, I didn't really want to reinvest in a DJI product, to be quite honest. I'm not loyal to a brand because of any particular reason. You know, I've learned that from being an Apple user for a very long time. I think the best thing is to do is to have something which works for you. And if you're learning how to fly and stuff, I think the Spark is a very good starter drone. But as you move up, maybe you want to look at some other brands which offer other qualities. And you know, ANAFI's camera with the 180 degree tilt and the zoom, all these factors, and plus the flight plans, you know, make it a very interesting drone. And the other factor of that, you can do the geofencing yourself as opposed to it being imposed on you. So these are the key elements for choosing the ANAFI. Alright, thanks. I hope you enjoyed the video.